where you can grow with like-minded practitioners and reach new clients. Metamorphosisconnections.com is an online directory you need to list yourself and your business. Our platform makes it easy for you to create listings of your products and services, and you can also choose to list your classes, events, and so much more. Metamorphosisconnections.com helps you create weekly and monthly promotional ads targeted towards your potential clients and promotes them for you via social media and newsletter. There are clients searching for your specialty right now. Let us help them find you. Start your listing today so you can share your own unique gifts and talents by finding the level of membership that best fits your needs. Let us help you reach your clients that are searching for what you do. Visit metamorphosisconnections.com and sign up today.
With a look at your AM 950 weather, I'm Patrick Lilia. Partly cloudy tonight with a low of 31. Then Tuesday, a chance of rain and snow with a high of 50. AM 950 is celebrating 15 years of Matt McNeil on March 30th, and you're invited. Join us at Crooner Supper Club in Fridley from 2 to 5 for an unforgettable celebration. Head over to am950radio.com right now to get your tickets.
Portions of the following program may be pre-recorded.
The views expressed and the opinions given by the individual host, guest, random reptoid, or chupacabra may not necessarily reflect those of AM 950 Radio, its affiliates, or its sponsors. Now, it's time to step into the unknown. There are things people experience but never talk about. A shadow moving in the corner, flickering of the lights, a disembodied voice. We invite you to talk with us. Share your story, share your experience, because this isn't just your story, this is our story. This is GhostBox Radio with Greg Bakun.
And this is GhostBox Radio on AM 950, where every night we talk about the paranormal, ufology, Bigfoot, and so much more. My name is Greg Bakun. Thank you very much for joining us on this Monday evening. I hope you had a fantastic weekend. I just wanted to quickly say we've been getting a lot of great feedback about our episode, our double episode last Thursday, where we had Travis Walton and Jennifer Stein. And for those of you who have not had a chance yet to take a listen, because Travis said stuff in that episode that I have never heard anywhere else. In fact, Jennifer was like, you've never shared this publicly before. And I thought that that was pretty exciting, that you can go get it off of Spotify. Don't forget, you go to GhostBox Radio with Greg Bakun on Facebook or am950radio.com. And I really appreciate everybody who has had a lot of really kind things to say about that. Now, to me, and my guest Richard may not see it this way, but to me, this episode has been in the making since at least 2019. And the first book that I've ever read from our author tonight, our guest Richard Estep, is The Horrors of Fox Hollow Farm, Unraveling the History and Hauntings of a Serial Killer's Home. It was published in 2019. When I was doing my radio show over on Para X, we had it lined up for Richard to join us to talk about it, but I got sick. And we didn't really have an opportunity to reconnect, even though I do want to say that I think it's one of the best books I've ever read. And I'm just being very honest about that. So here we are, just a mere, if I knew math, I could come up with a number, years later. And we're going to be talking about his newest book that's coming out. And that is Dark Spirits, Monsters, Demons, and Devils. And if you are unaware of Richard, he does many things. Obviously, he's a writer. He was on TV's Paranormal Night Shift, Haunted Hospitals, Paranormal 911. But I don't want to put words in his mouth, but I would assume the most important one out of all that is he's a paramedic. And I am very honored to be able to have Richard on the program tonight. Richard, welcome to GhostBox Radio.
Hey, Greg, thanks for the invitation. It's good to be, I was going to say back, but it's good to be taking you up on that invitation 6 years afterwards.
Well, you're kind of a busy person. I mean, I was going to say at one point we should tell the audience where you're going to be over the next couple of weeks, but maybe it's easier to tell us where you're not going to be. It's probably a shorter list. You're kind of out and about all over the country every weekend, and wonderful. That's great. I'm happy to see that. It's going very well for you, it looks like.
Yeah, not bad for someone with crippling social anxiety and awkwardness. I do a lot of public events. I have quite a few lined up. This coming weekend, I'll be in Schertz, Texas, with Brad and Barry Kling and some other good para people. I love charity events, and that we're supporting a charity that helps single moms who are in financial hardship. So I hope to see some people there. I'm being forced almost at gunpoint to go bowling, something at which I suck so bad. So come watch me strike out so badly in a bowling lane this weekend in Schertz, Texas.
My goodness. Well, bowling is fun. I mean, if you get in the right frame of mind about it, I think you'll do just fine. You come across as somebody who could probably do just about anything.
Yeah, I can hit an IV pretty well, but I don't know about bowling pins. We will find out.
I honestly, in the work that you do, I much rather you hit IV very well than bowl. So the new book that is Dark Spirits, Monsters, Demons, and Devils. Is this out yet, or we're just?
It is right here. I'm holding a copy right here. Love that cover. It's the first book of mine where I've actually appeared on the cover.
Yeah.
But no, it is. It came out last week.
Okay.
And I'm really glad to see it out there in the world. I'm a year behind. In other words, when I have a book published, usually I wrote it a year before.
Okay.
So as we are speaking tonight, before I came on your show, I was putting down some words on a book in the same series for the same publisher that will be with us this week next year. On monsters, cryptids, and all kinds of slithery, flying, creepy, crawly things.
I love it. How many books have you written now?
Last count I had was 44, I want to say.
And now I'm going to be honest, I haven't read all 44, and I hope that's okay. But okay, good. But everybody who reads your books, there is not one that anyone is like, this was okay or whatever. You just feel like you have just a natural ability to just write and just, but it's not a machine. These are really, really good books. I mean,
I appreciate hearing that, Greg. A lot of people, and they mean well. I absolutely die a little bit inside when they say Richard cranks out books. And I'm like, I know it looks like that, but I spend hour after hour at the keyboard, night after night, and I'll spend 2 or 3 hours most days working on that next book project. And you do that enough, you put out 3 or 4 books a year. It's like anything else. When someone works hard at something, it looks a lot easier than it really is.
Yeah. No, I can't imagine. And I was reading Dark Spirits, Monsters, Demons, and Devils, and I was just taken. I mean, you have a great way of getting us in, and these are, a lot of these places, and I'm going to ask you to talk about the book here in a second, but a lot of these places you have listed, I mean, they're places I've always been interested in as well. So what is, for those who may not have had a chance to get the book yet, what is the book about?
I'm really lucky. When I write for Visible Ink Press, they'll often approach me with an idea or a concept and say, is this something you would like to do? And I usually will say yes. And in this one, they said, would you give us a book on the darker side of the paranormal? And I said, sure, that sounds terrific. Now, God bless them, they did not specify what dark actually meant. So I had quite the latitude to write about what I wanted to write about. So in addition to the obvious stuff, the monsters, spirits, demons, that kind of thing, I got to look at the darker side of human nature as well. So I was able to write about the connection between some serial killers and the occult. Yep. I was able to write about the Salem witch trials, which I'd always wanted to write about. I went to Salem in person several times. The real darkness in Salem had nothing to do with spectral evidence and, familiars and witchcraft. It had everything to do with the awful things human beings are capable of doing to other human beings when they get greedy or nasty. Yeah. So I got to define dark in my own terms. And so everything in this book, the theme of the book is darkness as it relates to the paranormal realm, but it's a pretty broad interpretation of that word.
I noticed that. And that's the thing that I really liked about this, is especially when you are talking about serial killers and whatnot, because that does, I mean, that's something I think does get overlooked quite a bit. It certainly is by me. I don't really think of it that way. You know, how many of these places, I know a lot of it's also about people, black-eyed kids, stuff like that. How many of these places have you been to?
Quite a few of them. Waverly Hills Sanatorium is one. The Denver Botanic Gardens would be another one. Malvern Manor, you know, the Villisca Axe Murder House. I put boots on the ground a lot of these places. Some I just did not have the budget to visit, you know, like Akigara, the Japanese suicide forest.
Yeah.
I just didn't have the budget to travel to Japan. But the majority of them I have been to. And I'm always looking for that story that I can tell. I can delve into the human elements of it and try and bring readers along for that reading experience.
Have you been to Amityville?
I've not, and I've never been inside the house either. It's an interesting case, but the darkness, as far as I'm concerned, and I'm going to soapbox a minute, if I may. The darkest thing about the Amityville case is that we so easily forget that the whole thing hinges upon the brutal murder of the DeFeo family.
Absolutely.
And that something like 47 Amityville movies now, I kid you not, billions of dollars have been made on this one particular tragedy. And the exploitation of it continues to this day. So that's darker than anything, I think, paranormal that happened within that house.
It's an interesting thing. It's one that's been fascinating me for forever, and it's
fascinating to me too.
And it just seems one of those situations where you know, you're absolutely right. You have this what seems to be just very pure dark stuff happening to one family for a month. And really, you don't only hear of anything happening again after that. And the people, it at least far as I have heard, the people who live there now have never talked about anything like that happening there.
I think the most trespassing thing that's happened in that neighborhood in decades. Sorry, the most terrifying thing is trespassing. You know, they ended up taking out those iconic windows and renumbering the lot. It's blurred out on Google Earth, Google Street View. The invasion of privacy, you know. I think I've heard no claims at all that the house has any kind of paranormal activity. Butch DeFeo, the murderer, famously said in a letter to a reporter that he corresponded with, we both know that there was one demon at Amityville, and that demon was me.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You know,
absolutely. Yeah. And, you know, I mean, that being said, that would be one of the places that I would like to go to just to experience it. But don't worry, I'm not going to trespass. I'm not going to go out there at all. But it would be a place that I would love to go to. Out of here, that a place that you haven't been to. Mm-hmm. Did you get something? Did you like read? Or not, sorry, but did you research something that made you like change your mind? Like, I really want to go to this place now.
You know, one that didn't make it into this book that I ended up saving for my next book, which is out in September, is I very much wanted to visit Alcatraz.
Ooh, yeah.
That's been on my bucket list forever. You know, just the history of it alone fascinates me. And just thinking about what that pressure cooker environment must have been like. Then you look at, you know, things like the Battle of Alcatraz, where you had a full-blown firefight taking place there. So much about Alcatraz's history is fascinating. And I ended up actually saving that for the book on ghosts that I have coming out in September. But yeah, the more I delved into Alcatraz, the more fascinating I found it.
It is a very interesting place. I actually had on the program at one point the nephew of the brothers that escaped, and it was really an interesting story about, you know, what they have figured out, what they have found, because they wrote a book as well about it all. Mm-hmm. It's everything about that is pretty incredible. You know, this book that you've written, Dark Spirits, Monsters, Demons, and Devils. How long did it take you to get all this together?
Well, I have some advantages to this book because a lot of them came from my case files. So
sure.
The Denver Botanic Gardens was right on my doorstep. I spent several nights locked in there with a team of investigators after their night security guy quit in the middle of a shift. and they were willing to allow me to be locked in and to investigate. So I'd done a lot of the legwork already, you know.
Yeah.
Some of them I just found. So I wrote about the Betty and Barney Hill abduction, and I had been driving to Mount Washington to do a public event there, and I was with Johnny L. Tenney.
Yep.
He said, "Hey, you know, if you pull off to the side of the road here and take this turn, there's something cool." And it was the historical marker for the Betty and Barney Hill abduction.
Nice.
I mean, how cool is that? And I don't know about you, but nothing inspires me more to want to really delve into a story than standing in the spot, knowing that the history took place there. I think we as humans can viscerally connect with these stories if we are in the place, you know.
Yes.
And to know what it's like to stand on that ground. So Gettysburg, I've spent many years investigating Gettysburg also. So Fox Hollow Farm, which you mentioned earlier, has a section in the book. I co-wrote an entire book on the haunting of Fox Hollow Farm, and did a lot of research on that actually in the house itself.
Yep.
So yeah, I'd done some legwork before I even said yes to the project, Greg.
You're a really big fan of, and correct me if I'm wrong, of American history, right?
I'm a really big fan of all history, but
Sure.
America is my adopted home. The US is my adopted home.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'll always be a British kid at heart, but still, I became a citizen here 22 years ago. And this country has fascinated me for as long as I can remember. I'm currently on a big Wild West kick, working on a book about the ghosts of Tombstone.
Nice.
So I've been out that way the last few years researching a book on Tombstone. You know, this country has a fascinating history.
I've been to Tombstone. I've investigated the birdcage. I've investigated a couple different areas around there, and you know, there's places like Tombstone, Gettysburg, Deadwood. These are places that they're so different than anywhere else I've ever investigated. Have you ever noticed anything like that with anything that has to do with like the Wild West, the kind of a very, well, Gettysburg is not about the Wild West. Trust me, folks, I do know some history. But, you know, those historical places seem to be have a very different sort of energy than a lot of the other places that I go and investigate.
I think the past feels closer, if that makes any sense. It's almost as if the distance which separates them from us, them being the people that lived and breathed and walked during those days, that there is less distance between us and them than there is in somewhere like New York City or Denver or Chicago or whatever it is. There's just something about those places that seems more immediate when you are, you know, walking in their footsteps. And Tombstone, I mean, I say this with the greatest of respect because I fell in love with Tombstone, but it's a town with exactly one card to play and it plays it well.
Yeah.
And, you know, you get to walk in the footsteps of the Earps and the Clantons and the McClowrys, you know, you get to follow the same path down to the OK Corral. And you really get to experience what it was like to stand in the place, which they should have called the gunfight at the empty lot that was kind of close to the OK Corral, right?
Yeah, right.
Not as catchy on a movie poster. But no, it's that immediacy. You know, I've never been to Deadwood and it's on my bucket list. I'm going to be heading out further west later this year. So this is something I haven't talked about yet, but to Virginia City, which has long been on my bucket list too.
Oh, you hadn't been yet, huh? Okay.
No. So first time this year for the Washoe Club. You know, it's a bucket list location for me.
That's fantastic. Yeah, no. And for Deadwood, when you go out there, just prepared to be overcome by shops that are selling T-shirts. That's kind of.
That's what I've heard. I've heard the commercialization is a little,
It's really interesting too because, you know, like talk about Gettysburg. Gettysburg is a functioning town. You don't get that. There are places you get souvenirs, but Deadwood, but you know, really that historic street, nothing but. And
don't you think as well that Gettysburg holds a very special place in the nation's fabric because it truly is hallowed ground?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, Deadwood, Tombstone, super cool. Like super cool. But there's something about Gettysburg that there is a sense there that great things happened in that small space. Not just the carnage, but you have the Gettysburg Address, you know. Our entire history pivots on that weekend in July of 1863, and you can feel it.
I was fortunate enough when I went to Gettysburg that I was there that weekend. And it was I will just say that I've never experienced a location like Gettysburg, and it is truly it's life changing, quite frankly. And I do think, to your point, stands very well that there is a lot of gravity of just the history, let alone what's remnants of the energies around there as well, for sure. Yeah. Why don't we do this? Let's go ahead, take our first break. When we come back, we're going to talk more about dark spirits, monsters, demons, and devils with author Richard Estep. Also, folks, if you have questions for Richard, put it into the chat. We'll talk about it. We'll get those questions out there. Stick around. You're listening to GhostBox Radio on AM 950. Greg Bakun here. I love historic tours of Minneapolis and seeing everything it has to offer. But if you know me, I like to include a little spooky in my tours, which is why I found the perfect combination. Minneapolis Trolley Tours does this amazing candlelight ghost tour that you have to check out. It's an extremely immersive experience. It's a trolley trip that starts out at a haunted mansion, traveling around Minneapolis locations exposing ghost stories that the public and business owners would rather left untold. Then a tour of the aforementioned haunted mansion where ghosts of past residents from the 1800s reside, plus a lot of surprises to discover. Next, experience Gertrude's After Hours. Did I mention Gertrude is the mansion's most famous ghost? Maybe she'll show up. And you finish up the tour at Gertrude's Lounge in the haunted basement of the mansion with refreshments and Q&A. The trolleys are climate controlled and the mansion is restored to perfection. Check out MinneapolisTrolleyTours.com for more information. Greg Bakun here. I've told you about the out-of-the-world roast beef sandwiches at Maverick's Real Roast Beef, but I haven't told you about their Philly steak sandwiches, turkey bacon avocado sandwich, BLT, crispy chicken, fish sandwiches, brisket, or pulled pork. Okay, you get the idea. They make a lot of delicious food to the same standard as their famous roast beef sandwiches, and now I'm starving. I'm going to go to Maverick's Real Roast Beef off Lexington and Roseville, and you need to go too. Check out their menu at mavericksbeef.com. Have you ever met someone who not only can help you on a deep spiritual level, but also potentially change your life? Refined Divine is an extremely gifted psychic medium who travels the nation and lives right here in the Midwest. And she offers mediumship, mentorship, house and business parties, energy healing, palm readings, and so much more. Refined Divine has helped thousands, and she can help you.
Hi, this is Psychic Medium Deb. I cannot wait to hear from you. You can go to refineddivinepsychic.com.
Join us. And as we put into the commercials, you got to go check out Minneapolis Trolley Tours, folks. I was thinking about it today, and you go to a lot of these sort of tours and stuff of haunted locations, and so many of these places, they're generally just stories, and which could be tall tales, could be whatever else. But one of the things that I've really realized with the Minneapolis Trolley Tours is simply this: these are real locations. When you're doing the tour, you're not always able to stop and actually get out into the locations. But when we did our event with them last year, and we were able to stop at one of the locations, we went in there and we had instant spirit interaction, and it lasted. We were only there for about 30 minutes, but it's right as soon as we got into the time we left, it was very, very serious, and it was pretty cool too. So when you go on these tours and they talk about these locations, they are real stories. They're real fun. It's a great couple hours to spend, and you get to go to a magnificent mansion, 300 Clifton. So please go to MinneapolisTrolleyTours.com and do what you need to do and enjoy. We are currently having a great conversation with author Richard Estep. We are talking about his newest book, Dark Spirits, Monsters, Demons, and Devils. And Richard, we have a couple comments, if you don't mind, I'd like to get to, if you're fine with that.
Please be my guest.
Let's see here. We got folks talking about places that they've been that have these sort of, these kind of energy signatures, I guess, to them. Anton says Stockyards, Fort Worth, Texas. Okay. Chuck says areas where wars have happened have a more pronounced spiritual activity of many sorts. I was thinking about when I read that for some reason, and I think you'll know where I'm talking about here. when I was in the UK, and I go over there as I've bored you many times that I'm a big researcher of British television.
Mhm.
We went out to where Children of the Stones were made. I brought my gear and I got so much activity from that. Not really surprising. Have you ever done anything in areas like that to do any sort of like investigating or anything?
I haven't, but I just added one to my next year bucket list because last month I was in Cornwall,
Oh,
driving from London to Cornwall to stay in Pengusick Castle, and we passed Wookey Hole
yep.
on the way. Now, Wookey Hole, famously haunted by a man in a diver's suit, an old-fashioned diver's suit. And as you'll know, it was the set for a classic Tom Baker Doctor Who episode, and
Revenge
it
of the
was
Cybermen.
the Doctor Who crew that reported seeing this apparition.
Isn't that something? And it focuses Revenge of the Cybermen, right?
Yes.
It's and they have like it's like a statue. It's not a statue per se, but a rock formation that looks like a witch in there too, isn't there?
Yeah, the Witch of Wookey Hole,
Yeah.
which has it has great stories associated with it. The usual legends that she's a petrified human turned into a witch. But now I guess they've put in like a hotel down there. You can stay down there in like 5-star comfort, which is the older I get, the more I like room service with my ghost hunting.
I was just going to ask, what do you think about that? Okay, fair enough.
I've done enough, and I do still love doing them, right? But we do investigate in some very austere places.
Yes,
The kind of places where I love them, but you wipe your feet on the way out. And so the idea of every once in a while getting like a luxury accommodation is really appealing. The older I get.
Yeah, no, I get it. I get it too. Another place in the UK that I investigated, not much. I'm going to go back there. I want to do an event out there. Is Alexandra Palace. And that is the birthplace of the BBC. They took up one wing of it. And I had a friend who ran a British television group, and I've had 2 private tours there. The second time I went, I brought my gear with, and we're down in the basement, which is just a surreal location. I mean, the 2 times I went, stuff hadn't been literally moved in 40 years. I'm sure it's changed now, but stuff was off the hook down there. It would be a lot of fun to get into that place.
Yeah, TV history is so fascinating. And, being a child of the 70s, back when TV existed to just scare the heck out of children.
Right.
I think there is a whole lot of stuff to be mined there. Just as an aside, are you familiar with the Scarred for Life books?
No, I'm not actually.
You are going to thank me. Make a note. Look at the Scarred for Life books, which cover British television and primarily its darker aspects. Highly recommended.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah, I will definitely recommend it. One of my favorite when I want to be very macabre and downright just gloomy and weird is go to findadeath.com. And it's Scott Michaels that has that site, and he does this wonderful site about how actors and stars died. And it's it's really very morbid, and sometimes you just want to be morbid, sometimes you want to know how the skipper died on Gilligan's Island, I'm just saying. Some people are out there right now are like, no, we wouldn't. I guarantee you will someday. Someday you'll just be like, how did Gilligan die? Chuck in the comments says, is in Wookey Hole, is it called Hotel Voga? So
I don't know what it's called. I just know that it's a thing. And I drove by and it just threw up a mental flag, which is how so many of my projects happen. I'll just make that connection with something that I grew up watching. I'll be like, I should do that next time I'm here, So I honestly don't know what it's called, but I just added that to my list of stuff to do next year.
That's pretty cool, actually. Anton Ritter writes Bob Crane. Bob Crane is on Find a Death. Okay, that's probably the first one they actually put in there, would be my guess.
Well, and in the book I wrote about the so-called curse of Superman.
Yes, you did.
I wanted to write about curses in a broader context, and so looking at the curse of Superman was kind of fascinating. And you have this idea, don't you, that a number of Supermen have met with tragedy and sometimes, death. George Reeves is, of course, the one everyone thinks of,
Yeah.
who died under suspicious circumstances by apparently self-inflicted gunshot.
Right.
And then, we all are familiar with what happened to Christopher Reeve and the tragedy that happened there. But then, I saw Henry Cavill was asked about it, and he seems to be doing quite nicely for himself. So statistically, more Supermen have done well than have been cursed. So.
Maybe it's not the Superman curse. Maybe it's the Reeves curse, having the name Reeves.
There's an S on one though, and not on the other. Chris Reeve had no S on the end, right?
Christopher Reeve. I suppose so. Yeah. I mean, if you're gonna be pedantic about it, I suppose that is the only flaw in my.
Well, I get paid by the word, Greg, so I like to pay attention to them.
Fair enough. I get paid by the words I say. It's still not very much. So George Reeves. Sorry. Do you believe that? Do you believe that he offed himself?
That's a great question. When you start delving into it, there is enough about it that seems suspicious.
Yeah.
I mean, the delay in the 911 call. There was the fact that his girlfriend at the time said George is heading upstairs and he's about to shoot himself. Things of that nature. It's pretty fishy. So I honestly don't know. But a sketchy death does not a curse make, in my opinion.
No.
And so, Cursed Movies is a great TV series. I think they've gotten two seasons out of that. The so-called Curse of the Exorcist, the Curse of Poltergeist. I think it's obvious that when you look at a Hollywood production that big with hundreds of people involved, statistically there will be deaths, there will be, misadventure, there will be macabre accidents or things like that. And I will say this, a cursed movie set is absolute gold for a studio PR department. Warner Brothers made great hay out of the so-called Curse of the Exorcist.
Absolutely they did. And I think too, as a public, we want to believe that George Reeves actually was murdered, opposed to him. I mean, it's just, that's how we kind of I think go to, I mean, it's more sensational than this poor person decided that he decided he needed to take his life. I think generally people want to believe that he was murdered, whether it's true or not.
Well, and I also think you have that incredible pedestal that Superman was held on.
Yeah.
And quite frankly, I miss when that was a thing. Because, he was everything that was best about, truth, justice, and the American way. Right there in the, red and blue costume. And I think that, we're both Doctor Who fans, and there used to be probably still is, a big responsibility with playing Doctor Who.
Yes.
There was the expectation that you would, not be out causing scandals, not be seen drunk in the press. Yep. Tom Baker didn't do so well with that one.
Not so great.
But still a wonderful dude by all accounts. And, you become an icon. And I think Superman is a living icon. So the idea that that terrible things befell this American icon is tragic to us. Yeah. And maybe a little difficult to accept.
Right. And there's sometimes that confusion between the actor and the and the characters they play. I was just I'm writing a review for the 1956 film The Searchers that Jeffrey Hunter is in, and I think Jeffrey Hunter is another great example of that. And it's a shame. And Bob Crane is in there, and well, I'm gonna take my words back, because Bob Crane is something different. I mean, yeah, he was having a hard time get work, but he did other things that's totally different. I almost forgot about that.
But you got to kick out of this, Greg. So I was investigating the haunted Shepton Mallet prison in England a couple of years ago, and they had a cell that was a TV set. It was used for a TV series. I don't know if you saw it. It was called Des.
What?
And it was called Des, and David Tennant played one of Britain's most notorious serial killers. So, you look at this man that is he's my favorite Doctor Who. Like, I think he's most people's favorite Doctor Who. That man is, and everybody loves David Tennant, right? Pretty much.
Really.
And so to see him then do this turn as a completely creepy serial killer, a guy that slept with the corpses of his victims and kept them under the floorboards and then would unearth them and, sleep with them on top of him, to see someone we love so much transform into someone so chilling that we loathe and are afraid of. is kind of remarkable and a bit jarring. There's some real dissonance there.
Truly. And, as you write books, and you have written about both sides, like paranormal, but also serial killers.
Yeah.
Is there something that does one appeal to you more than the other?
I would say paranormal, serial kill. So when I write a book on serial killers or any true crime book, it fascinates me. However, I need some mental floss afterwards.
Sure.
It's draining because I do read autopsy reports, and as someone who has the job that I do, I know what death looks like, a violent death. I know what it smells like, which is every bit as bad. I have those experiences and memories myself. And so, when I do the kind of research for that, it definitely takes you to some dark places. And I do have that understanding with the publisher that I will go on and do something not murder related for my next project. They're nice enough to never ask me to do 2 in a row.
Sure.
Because they do take their toll on you emotionally, as interesting as they are. Whereas the paranormal stuff primarily has the joy and the wonder that I've always associated with good ghost stories.
And I suppose too, with the paranormal stuff, we could talk about our experiences, we could talk about the locations, but there's still a little bit of a question of like, did this happen? There's still a little bit of that wonder to it, where with the serial killer, there is no, did this happen? These people are monsters generally, and they're horrible people. And, just as much as you want to have a break after writing them, we often want to have a break after reading them as well.
That's absolutely true. It's amazing how many people I talk to who will tell me that they fall asleep to true crime documentaries.
Yeah.
I'm like, how do you do that? I don't get it. I think also the more disturbing thing to me, and it's something I'm very cognizant of when I write those books, but the idea that we have created the rock star serial killer. And I think Oliver Stone and Quentin Tarantino really commented on that with Natural Born Killers. The idea that we put the vilest of human beings on a pedestal. The idea that you can buy T-shirts with Manson, with Gacy, with Bundy, with Dahmer on them. That you can buy action figures of this human trash. It's kind of horrifying to me as well. And I think Richard Ramirez was the first individual to really be the kind of rock star serial killer that had groupies turning up at the courthouse for his trial, which kind of ties us into Dark Spirits, because one of the locations in that book is the Hotel Cecil.
Yep.
Where Ramirez lived during part of his reign of terror.
That place is something. I've never been there. You've been to Hotel Cecil then?
Couldn't get in. It is now I want to say Section 8 housing or housing for homeless, which is a great thing considering that they had 600 rooms in the middle of what became Skid Row. They absolutely should use it for that. I really hope, though, they've scrupulously changed out the plumbing.
Yeah. Oh, gosh. Yeah, exactly. Why don't we do this? Let's get our next break in. When we come back, let's continue talking about the book, Dark Spirits, Monsters, Demons, and Devils. If you've been reading any of Richard's books, let me know. I'd love to know what you've been reading. There's a lot of them. They're all very good, and I'd love to get your opinion. Don't go anywhere. You're listening to GhostBox Radio on AM 950. Greg Bakun here. I love historic tours of Minneapolis and seeing everything it has to offer. But if you know me, I like to include a little spooky in my tours, which is why I found the perfect combination. Minneapolis Trolley Tours does this amazing candlelight ghost tour that you have to check out. It's an extremely immersive experience. It's a trolley trip that starts out at a haunted mansion, traveling around Minneapolis locations exposing ghost stories that the public and business owners would rather left untold. Then a tour of the aforementioned haunted mansion where ghosts of past residents from the 1800s reside, plus a lot of surprises to discover. Next, experience Gertrude's After Hours. Did I mention Gertrude is the mansion's most famous ghost? Maybe she'll show up. And you finish up the tour at Gertrude's Lounge in the haunted basement of the mansion with refreshments and Q&A. The trolleys are climate controlled and the mansion is restored to perfection. Check out MinneapolisTrolleyTours.com for more information. Greg Bakun here. I've told you about the out-of-the-world roast beef sandwiches at Maverick's Real Roast Beef, but I haven't told you about their Philly steak sandwiches, turkey bacon avocado sandwich, BLT, crispy chicken, fish sandwiches, brisket, or pulled pork. Okay, you get the idea. They make a lot of delicious food to the same standard as their famous roast beef sandwiches, and now I'm starving. I'm going to go to Maverick's Real Roast Beef off Lexington and Roseville, and you need to go too. Check out their menu at mavericksbeef.com. Have you ever met someone who not only can help you on a deep spiritual level, but also potentially change your life? Refined Divine is an extremely gifted psychic medium who travels the nation and lives right here in the Midwest. And she offers mediumship, mentorship, house and business parties, energy healing, palm readings, and so much more. Refined Divine has helped thousands, and she can help you.
Hi, this is Psychic Medium Deb. I cannot wait to hear from you. You can go to refineddivinepsychic.com.
And join me tomorrow on GhostBox Radio with Greg Bakun, as we're going to have on tomorrow. And this was something that was brought up in one of our questions of the week on Friday. And it was people are wondering, where do lost children, where their spirits, where do they go? Especially if they were abducted, all sorts of things. Like, what happens to them? And the person I thought to bring on was Miriam Faresh. She's an incredible psychic medium. She was the brains behind Myth or Mystery, and I just cannot wait to have her on tomorrow. It's going to be a great conversation. Wednesday, we're going to have on author Chris Carter talking about Case for the Afterlife, Evidence of the Afterlife. Thursday is going to be a replay with Paul Blake Smith. His book, The Nixon Gleason Alien Encounter, is it's a great book to read as well. And of course, we end with Friday, Casual Friday. And we talk about this. We're talking about books here. We got a great one here that we're talking about. Dark Spirits, Monsters, Demons, and Devils, written by Richard Estep, that is with us tonight. And Richard, we haven't even talked about where we can pick up this book.
No, you can get it from all the usual online retailers, but you can also have your favorite local independent bookstore order it in for you and support them that way.
Absolutely. You go in there and they can order everything, and it might even be in there as well. You know, you never know. I mean, that's the great thing about it. So yeah, please supporting the mom and pop bookstores, as well as supporting the author as well. It all just as good. And it's such a great I think it's such a great area we're in right now with books in general, Richard, where I think there are so many subjects that are somewhat niche, maybe not completely niche, but we're able to really drill down on a lot of different subjects and have a lot of great books and great reads coming out of that. And it just feels like that if, something that sometimes I get kind of down on society because of everything going on, but there's always a great book about something I'm interested in. And there isn't anything that seems to be too niche. That's how I see it anyway.
Yeah, there is definitely something for everyone out there. And if you'd like to read a book on something, the chances are it's out there. And I encourage people that if nobody's writing what you want to read, write what you want to read. Yeah. A lot of writers, that's why they start doing what we do, Is
that how it started for you?
Yeah. I wanted to read real life ghost stories, and I'd read a lot of the stuff that was out there at the time. And some of it was very good and inspirational. And I was like, I would like to do this. And I had years of case experience. So I sold my first book in 2014 when I've been investigating for 20 years to Llewellyn and never really looked back.
Is it addictive for you to write?
I think it's compulsive. It's a compulsion. Like, I don't feel quite right if I go to bed and haven't written at least 1,000 words. That's probably because I have several deadlines, though, stacked throughout the year.
Sure.
And then there's the editing and stuff like that. But, I like to have written more than I like to write, in the same way that, I look back on 30 years later, I look back on boot camp with very fond memories now from my warm living room. But at the time, it wasn't fun. So, yeah, I like having written.
Yeah, no, that's it. And do you go over your work a lot and refine, or do you just kind of, you get to where you want to get it to relatively quickly?
I'm generally a 3-draft writer, and there is a huge psychological weight off your shoulders when draft 1 is done. I know far too many people that have written 30, 40, 50, 60, 80% of a book. Mm-hmm. And no matter how bad it is, until you cross that finish line, there is always the possibility you'll abandon it. But once it's done, I like to actually put it away for a week or two and then come back to it and then go through for a second draft. And then a third draft will usually be a polish to the publisher's specifications when a proofreader and test readers have read it and they'll offer feedback, Sure. I was for example, just this weekend, I was editing, doing the final draft on Ghostly Encounters, which comes out September the 9th. And the proofreader had said, hey, this author's British. Maybe when he talks about people being banged up in prison, Americans will draw the wrong conclusion. Let's change this phrase. And it never occurred to me, never entered my brain,
No.
So, yeah.
No, it's funny because John Levine, who played Sergeant Benton on
Sergeant Benton, 5 rounds rapid.
He stayed at my house when I was young.
Really?
Yeah, because we did a convention, and he made a big. He thinks he's funny, and he made a kind of a shtick about what cigarettes are called in the UK, and the miscommunication, and it was painful, to be very honest, and that's the quality of that kind of comedy. We do have some questions in the comments here. Rosemary asks for Richard, is there any place that you wouldn't want to investigate because it's too creepy?
Not because it's too creepy, but there are some places I would not investigate as a matter of principle. And I'll give you an example. I went to the United Flight 93 Memorial in Scranton, Pennsylvania. And, again, you talk about sacred ground. And not that any of my friends, fellow investigators would have done it, but we just made it very clear. It's like, no recorders, no nothing. You go here, you pay your respects, you appreciate, and then we leave. I would never consider an investigation at the site of the former World Trade Center. One of the most disgusting things that's ever happened to me in my career was that literally the day after the Dark Knight Rises movie theater shooting in Aurora, the police chivied away investigators that were outside that location with K2s and voice recorders.
Yeah.
And it's like, what is wrong with you people?
Absolutely.
And, I understand that you can make the same argument about, battlefields and things like that. I don't know how many years is appropriate, but we all know that too soon is too soon.
Yeah.
I feel fine investigating at Gettysburg. I even felt okay investigating at Fox Hollow Farm, where the murders were as recent as 1995. But there is just something about certain places where they are sacrosanct and they need to be left that way.
Absolutely. I for myself, for the show, I'm a big conspiracy theory. I enjoy a good conspiracy theory, but one thing I will never talk about and will never be on the show is anyone entertaining the idea of conspiracy for 9/11. I just don't want to hear it. I don't want anything to do with it. I don't want to, whether it is or not, I don't care. I just that's just out there. It's too horrific. Everything about that is too horrific to even have, in my opinion, having guesswork on that side of it. That's just me, though. So
yeah, I mean, I think it's okay to ask the questions in a respectful way. I certainly respect your right not to have that on your show. I still think that that 9/11 has many lessons to teach us, but by the same token, there are ways to ask those questions and places to ask them.
Yeah. Very much so. Very much so. The next one I have from Savannah here is that she said, have you experienced a demon?
Hey, Savannah. That's probably the most loaded question I could ever be asked. When I do shows like Haunted Hospitals, there is an in-joke among the production team. Don't give Richard any case with the word demon in it. I wrote a book. And I am kind of answering this as best I can. I wrote a book called In Search of Demons, where I tried to answer that very question. And it took me several years and 78,000 words. And the bottom line is I couldn't find one. Right. And boy, did I go looking. So not so far.
And so what you're saying with that is that are you saying that you haven't experienced anything like that, or you haven't found anything like in your research either that really makes you believe demons in general?
Actually, both. I think demons have been with us for as long as we have recorded history. We've believed in demons. They make great whipping boys, So back 1,000 years ago, your child was stillborn tragically. Demons did it. Your horse went lame, demons. There was an earthquake, a famine, demons. We've used demons as a black box to explain away the unpleasant sides of nature in our universe for centuries. Now that box shrinks a little bit. We have a better understanding of these kind of things. Half the world's population still believes in demons. And maybe they're right. Maybe they do exist. I will say this. If demons really do exist, how can I put it? You aren't going to find enough of them to feature one each week on a TV show for 20-something seasons. They are going to be a lot rarer than we are led to believe in popular culture, So now, to be fair, to play devil's advocate, quite literally, I've never seen a tornado either. Doesn't mean they don't exist. But 30 years in this field now, having been to demonically infested locations many times, having interviewed self-professed demonologists, and I've yet to find compelling evidence for their reality.
I think too, having done this show for 10 years, I think that when you bring people on to talk about demons, it's the response and the description and how they deal with them and the only way to deal with them varies greatly amongst everybody. That doesn't mean that they don't exist. I'm not saying that, but it is interesting that there is there really sometimes there doesn't seem to be coherency between different people talking about it, which is very interesting, but also to me kind of baffling at the same time.
Well, and I also find, to be very, very frank, Greg, there are individuals that have based either their entire identity or their entire career on the existence of demons and the fact that only they can save you from them. There are whole institutions that have done this. So, part of being an investigator in any field involves looking at motive. And whenever money is involved, whenever power is involved or influence, there is a motive to believe in things which may or may not be true. There is a motive to mislead. And I think that happens very frequently with the subject of demons.
Absolutely. Fear is a great motivator. So yeah, 100%. Now, we have about 4 minutes left. One other question, but I want to ask you one, being a fan of British television, but also into the paranormal. I'm sure that you are somewhat at least familiar with the work of Nigel Neal.
Oh, so Quatermass or Stone Tape, love them both.
So that's what your thoughts on the Stone Tape theory.
I love the Stone Tape theory. I think that Nigel Neal terrified a whole generation with that show. I think that, it's so prevalent in our belief system as paranormal investigators. I don't know how much hard evidence there is for it.
Yeah.
I love it as a hype. Should really be the Stone Tape hypothesis, right? Because it's never been tested, but it's not as catchy. You know what? The jury's still out. I'm on the fence.
Yeah. Quatermass in the Pit, to me, is one of the greatest pieces of television ever made.
Quatermass is so good. Really captured the zeitgeist of that era, didn't it?
It really did. And done when the BBC threw money at it, that it actually really stands up very, very well to me all these years later. Let's see. Linda asked the question, and we have, what do we have? About 3 minutes left, 2 minutes left. Before 2014, what was your favorite book to read, Richard?
It's the same today. It's almost certainly Lord of the Rings by J.R.R. Tolkien.
That's a lot of reading there.
Yeah, it's comfort reading, but great escapism. And Linda also asked, what's the highest word count I've ever written on a good day? It was on a bad day, actually. I was flying back from having shot a season of Haunted Hospitals. They put me on the last red-eye flight out of Toronto. I got marooned at Chicago O'Hare overnight. So I had 10 hours. I fueled with 2 Monster energy drinks. I did 15,000 steps around the airport, 200 push-ups, met every airport employee and said hello to overnight, and rage wrote 6,000 words and change of my latest book.
Is that something like everything that you did there, the power walk, the just getting, is that what helps you get over like a crappy situation, something that might be a roadblock? And
absolutely. You nailed it. I'm in this situation. I can't do anything about it. By the time I check into a hotel, I can sleep for maybe 4 hours, by the time I get there and shower and all that stuff. Then I have to come back to the airport, or I can be here and be present for like 9 or 10 hours. And when I fly home in the morning, I'll have written X thousand of words and I'll be in better physical shape although I'll be exhausted. I wanted to turn a negative into a positive. It's how I approach life.
It's smart, and it's a very healthy way of living, isn't it? It's and easier said than done, to be very
Apart from the energy drinks, I agree with you. Yeah.
And, one thing that we have about 30 seconds, maybe 40 seconds left here, and I didn't get to in the book, Dark Spirits, Monsters, Demons, and Devils. You wrote about monsters just in general. What are your take on monsters? Do you have like Loch Ness Monster and other sort of entities in that chapter, in that area?
I'm working on a 75,000 word book on that whole subject right now. I think that it would be a much less colorful world if they weren't real.
Yeah.
And I like to think there are still some dark corners where science does not know everything yet. Maybe the cryptozoologists are onto something in one case out of 10.
I agree. I think that, scientists didn't always know everything. For a while, we thought that the sun revolved around us. So there's always new stuff to learn, right?
Yeah. We just thought with relation to Loch Ness, the plesiosaur, which most people believe the Loch Ness monster was, we used to think it was a saltwater marine animal until in 2022, they found plesiosaur fossils in an actual freshwater river in Morocco. So they could exist in freshwater as well. That's a big boost for Nessie.
It is. We'll be back tomorrow with Miriam. Richard, thank you so much. This was fantastic. I loved it.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me on, Greg. And thanks for everyone that listened in.
Once again, the book is Dark Spirits, Monsters, Demons, and Devils. You can get it and go to your local bookstore and order it. Everyone, we'll see you tomorrow.